Okay, here we go. We're live in the Make Line Facebook group. It's Thursday, 12:30 p.m. UK time. I think it's 6:30 a.m. for Kirsty over in the US. Welcome, Kirsty. Kirsty's been on a few times. I love talking to Kirsty. We have some very deep and powerful chats whenever she comes on. But first of all, let me say welcome to everyone who's dropping in live. Anyone who's dropping for the first time. Just type in hashtag live. If you're watching live, let us know we're coming in loud and clear. And if you're watching later on the replay, like most people do, just drop a hashtag replay so I can see who's checking in. And as usual, love to make these interactive. So, share your own thoughts, your own experiences, ask any questions that come up for you that we can answer. I can bring them up. And we usually talk around those questions later in the live. Let's make this interactive. We're going to talk today around conscious relationships. And, this is something we can all relate to. We've all got close relationships, whether that be with our partner, parents, children, friends, whoever it is. We're always interacting with different people. And one of the things we're going to talk around a lot today is the idea of the fact that these are the people around us are basically a mirror for our own internal parts and how they can be a powerful aid for us on the awakening journey. They can show us the work we need to do on ourselves. And so instead of being lost in our internal traumas, these fractured parts of ourselves, where I think a lot of people are, I would say, particularly those who haven't done much in the way of the waking up work, is a tendency for us in the relationship to be in a very fractured state a lot of the time, constantly triggering each other, constantly out of the present moment. And, a lot of relationships can seem like a problem or a burden, a real challenge in our lives. But something we're going to focus on today is how we can look at them as being a fantastic opportunity and how they can really, really help us on our own journey of healing and spiritual development. But, this is something that Kirsty in particular is focusing on a lot now. We talked on a lot of different subjects in the past, in particular, the subject of being present in parenting. Now, I love what you talk around at the moment in this subject, because nobody challenges me more than my daughter. And I think it's these really close, intimate relationships. Somehow they do manage to challenge us. And indeed, I was talking about this to someone else the other day. Obviously, the work I do now is around holding space, being intuitive, being present with my clients, the people I work with. And I've developed a particular ability to do that. Something my wife said to me the other day was that I'm not so good at that in our relationship. So in my closest relationship, I'm not so good at holding space and listening and being present. So as always, there's a lesson there, something that's I'm very good at with my clients that I'm not so good at when it comes to my interrelationships. So why that is, we can talk around that today. And as I said earlier, the biggest challenge we find as parents is with our daughter, 5 years old. And somehow, I can speak from my own experience, she knows how to push our buttons all the time. Like she's constantly finding those triggers and pushing on them. And of course, when you're 5 years old, there is no conditioning, there is no internal management system, and so you're just like a pure, energetic, emotional being. If you're upset, if you're angry, then you're going to show it. If you're happy, if you're joyous, you're going to show that. And yes, so when you're dealing with an adult, most adults really are not going to trigger us in the same way because they have some kind of societal conditioning that goes within. But these kids are like little ninjas in terms of how they point out our traumas and parts to work on. But over to you, Kirsty, in terms of your own journey when it comes to this work, bringing consciousness, bringing presence to your relationships. What's your own journey been like around this in this particular area and led you onto this work today?
Yes, thank you for that, Mark. And thank you for inviting me back. It's always good to be here. Yes, so the kids, like you mentioned, they're like ninjas, and what's
Yeah.
behind that, it's that enormous love that they have and the
Mm.
connection. When you think about a baby up to 18 months old, that baby is joined with the mother and the father.
Yes. Physically. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't even understand that there is another reality.
Mm.
Like that little child is emerged into our world so
Mm.
that they think that is the only world that there is.
Yeah.
So my journey with all of this is actually with, of course, with my own children. I have four grown children, and I have one particular one that I noticed that, okay, she is different from me.
Mm.
And I remember when she was about 4 years old, she said, I want to be just like you, mommy, when I grow up.
Mm.
And she's different from me, but she's the one who has performed the greatest mirror for me. And
Yes.
it, when she became a teenager, it was wild. It was wild till I understood, because I actually took her to a doctor to see, what is wrong with this child.
Wow. Yeah.
And the doctor was very wise. I'm forever grateful for him. And he said to me that, have you ever thought that this child is just trying to talk to you? She has a message to you.
Mm.
And when he said that and I came home, I started being very curious. And so our relationship started growing, because I noticed that every time there was a fraction in our relationship, that child was showing something to me about myself
Yes.
every single time. And from there it became this, started this journey. And of course now I've been a life coach for a few years and started focusing on the parenting. And what is the foundation to all of these relationships is our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have your wife says, well, you're a little bit different. Well, that's just a reflection of, uh, you know, I don't have that perfect relationship with myself yet,
Yeah.
and this
Exactly.
is my
Yeah.
closest person is mirroring that to me. So I won't get into no bubble of thinking that I have arrived. I have not arrived.
There's no arriving. No.
Yes.
There is no point you get to where it's like, I'm a complete. For me, anyway, I don't think there's a place we get to where we got it all sussed and we worked it all out and we're some kind of perfect, enlightened being. I don't think that is the human experience, really. I don't think that's what it's about. We'll certainly expand and grow towards that. You could say our true nature or higher self, but as long as we're in human form, we're going to have work to do. We're going to have things to work on. We're going to have healing work to do.
Mhm.
And for me, we're going to keep coming back and doing that work, which is a beautiful journey, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Mhm.
But yes, I mean, this is a thing where it comes to, I can speak from my own experience. It's much easier to hold space for someone who you don't have that intimate connection to, like who you're not so much part of their lives or their stories. Like for me to hold space for someone who's a client, much easier for me to do that than with, for example, my wife. For somehow
Mhm.
it's much easier for me to slip into unconscious parts, or to get caught up in the story or what the ego wanted to defend itself. So yeah, so that's that. In a sense, what I'm saying is that my wife is a much more powerful teacher in a way. My clients are all powerful teachers for me, but my wife really brings out the triggers. Like there's times where now I'm a pretty calm and gentle person, which I think is part of the reason why I'm drawn to this work. But sometimes I can really hear those parts. Some of them are very angry, frustrated parts, sometimes where I'm just kind of doing something simple like sorting out the kitchen in the evening. I'm doing a bit of washing up or whatever, and she'll sort of come into my space and be in my way a little bit. And I hear these parts inside just like, get away from me, get out of my way, quite shocking parts that are triggered, parts that I'm not particularly proud of or want to admit to, very angry, hateful almost parts. Now, those parts aren't triggered by my friends particularly, or to say the people I work with, but with someone that I love dearly and is such an integral part of my life, we're together pretty much every day, able to really shine a light on those darker aspects of myself, and then that gives me an opportunity then to feel into that, to give compassion to those darker aspects of myself, to feel into the moment. And as we do also then, when there's a need, to sit with someone else in presence. Now, I would say, I know some people who do this, who sit regularly with their partners. I don't do that so much. I will sit with somebody else in presence, somebody with a very grounded system, somebody who I'm not so entangled with in my life on a day-to-day basis, who I can be quite neutral with, someone who can hold ground and presence for me and bring my system back to balance. Interested to know your thoughts on that, actually. Would you hold space, hold presence in that same way with members of your family? Is that something you'd bring to a relationship?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that when you were sharing, and I definitely share the same thing. So whenever somebody's that close, we're so much more comfortable with them. Our safety is felt differently, so we're able to bring down certain walls that we would have otherwise. Our ego is in a different place altogether. So I offer myself and all of us just awareness to a practice where we can hold better space for our family, but it comes from the foundation of holding space for us first.
Yeah.
Holding space just for me, myself, not even sitting with somebody else, but just really sitting by myself and getting to know my space, and getting that felt sense of that tranquil place where there's just this slowness and flowness of energy, and kind of getting familiar with that, so we can invite whoever into that, so we can just kind of go into that space automatically. I think it just takes practice, because of course we can understand, hey, this is a time I'm going to hold space for my loved one, that they need me, so we can come into the kind of a different space with ourselves. However, if we don't do this practice, if we are not bringing consciousness to that, it can get blurred. We'll just invite them into, because they're all the time close to us. So we kind of have to create a different space for the loved ones.
Yes. I see what you mean. Yes. Yeah, for me, it's, I wouldn't, for example, coach my wife in any way, or my friends, for example. I would send them to somebody else, I think, who isn't so entangled in the story and can listen from a place of neutrality and just hold space without getting pulled into anything. I think that's a better way of doing it. Yeah, and as I say, it is bringing gratitude for that, and in a way you can see it, a relationship like that, as a vehicle for awakening, really. And if you're on that same level where you can look at it that way, even when you trigger each other, even when there is an argument, and there's always going to be something that comes up at some point where we need to be compassionate with ourselves and realize, as human beings, we are not always going to get it right, I do this work every day like you do, Kirsty. I sit with myself, I sit with others, I sit in groups. And still there's times where somebody close to me will pull me into, some kind of fractured part, will take over, like anger. Anger's a tricky one to catch. Ooh, I just lost you there. Anger's a tricky one to catch in the moment, I find. When that creeps up and takes over, it can be 5 seconds before you aware of it. And in that time, you could have said something, you could have done something that you might regret. But then it is also being compassionate with ourselves and just realizing that, okay, this is, like you said, we're always a work in progress. There's always going to be more parts. There's always going to be more work to do. There are going to be times where I don't get it right. And it's that phrase of just, I'm imperfectly perfect, as we all are. But it is the intention, to have intention to be a better person than I was yesterday, and to always be on that path of healing and self-development. That is that is perfection for me, and just realizing that there are going to be times where we perhaps fall short of what the ideal standards we like to set for ourselves. But that is the human journey, isn't it? That's how we learn. That's how and it is exactly as you said. If it's like you're not going to get, for example, see real progress in a month or 2 months, this is something that's like learning a new language or learning a sport or anything. You've got to be, mastery is something that needs to be done over a long period of time, dedication and commitment. And that's what it's all about, committing to it to the long haul. And you do see, I was speaking to someone about this the other day, it's not like there's a big breakthroughs don't happen so much. It's like a little increments each day. And then all of a sudden you notice, oh, I'm handling that better. I'm not reacting unconsciously like I did in that situation. And something just is a little bit different. And that's what it's like for me, a little drops of awareness, little drops of progress along the way that helps you on the path and keeps you going.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really it's been a learning curve for sure, for me, and I believe it's that for everyone, just like you said, and just understanding that even though we do have and run into these emotions, they're not neither wrong or right. It's just highlighting something that is within us that we get to get curious about and we get to shine light on. So when we run into the shadow place in the relationship where there is a burst of anger or jealousy or any one of these lower, darker, slow emotions. So we get to understand that, oh, okay, it's there. So don't even worry about it at the time. Just take your breath, take your break, have tools that you can bring into that acute situation. And most of what I use is breath. I use, just awareness that, we're in a situation where mine and this other person parts are just flying everywhere right now. So let me take a step back. Let me give some space for myself and let me give space for this person. And sometimes the patterns of another person are not allowing that automatically to happen. For example, I am a leaving pattern, but I can use that for my advantage. That can be a gift to me. So in this case, it would be a gift for me to just step back a little bit and give them space, but they may be emerge comp. So they would be triggered more by that. So they keep coming. So then I need to set some boundaries. And so understanding the process that goes into this and what is behind it is, I'm not right, I'm not wrong. He or she is not right or wrong. This is just highlighting something that we get to both get curious about. My responsibility is to get curious about my own actions, what are happening in my own system. So understanding that at the time is helpful. And I always, like I tell my parents when we start this work, that get very clear on your values. you know, where there is like so many values that we can focus on. Like mine is kindness, communication, connection. So I remind myself of those values in these situations, and I protect those values and I
Right.
communicate those values. So I once I'm aware and I have, you know, thought about them, I have sat with them, I've understood myself that this is important to me. It's so much easier for me to be centered in those situations where it starts getting a little bit windy and stormy. Yeah, and
Yes.
it's the
Well, you
same thing
touched on a
with the
lot there.
children.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah. This is, I was going to say, this is quite, some people might listen to this and not quite grasping that, because this is quite advanced terminology you're using here when you talk about, you've dipped into there a bit about personality patterns. And you know, if someone's interested in learning more about that, there's a very good book that we all probably have and referenced us on this path. I can't remember the name of the author now, but I'll maybe put it in the notes below this, about the 5 personality patterns.
Stephen Kessler.
There you go. Very good book on this subject. Now, we all have a particular personality pattern. We probably all have elements of each one, I would say, but we have one that is more dominant. And this is something that's like a defense mechanism we have when we're under pressure or in emotional strain. Kirsty mentioned the lever pattern there, which is the pattern that I run or have run my entire life. And we can work on these things and bring more ground to our system. But what that essentially is the instant reaction is to leave a situation under times of emotional stress. So, for example, I mean, my wife is very frustrated when I do this. I will leave an argument physically, and even sometimes in terms of emotionally, just check out and go quiet. But sometimes, you know, physically, I'll just leave the situation. If I feel something boiling up, I'll go quiet. You know, as opposed to, I think it's an aggressive pattern, isn't it? That other people run, which is that's, you know, you fight. Your instinct is to fight in that instinct emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully not physically, but you know, you would fight back and then you can get into an argument. My pattern is to leave the situation, either physically or emotionally. And then all of these patterns have gifts and challenges attached to them as well. My wife is more of that. Is I think it's merger, where she looks for another person's system for emotional support in times of great strain. So she'll want to come towards me and do a lot of talking for a situation and unburden herself emotionally on my system. Now you can imagine there's a certain amount of energetic conflict there, because I'm a lever wanting to leave the situation. She's a merger wanting to merge with me. But there's always going to be different challenges, you know, with different personality types. But bringing awareness to what your pattern is can help with that and how you can work with that. So for me, you know, when I feel that urge in my system to get out of there, you know, to leave a situation when it's becoming emotionally overwhelming, my tool is to very much, first of all, you need to have awareness of what's happening so you don't instantly fall into pattern. The second thing I always do is drop awareness from my thoughts and into my body, like in the moment. And anybody could do this at any time of the day. Just feel into where the sensation is in your body. For example, I drop my awareness into my body. Straight away, I feel a bit of a tightness in my solar plexus. And look for the most uncomfortable sensation where the energy is built. As soon as you've done that, you're back in the present moment. When we're in our minds, you know, we're in these parts and we're very much in, you know, trapped in time as to wherever that part was formed, that trauma was formed. Once you're in the felt sense in the body, you're back in the present moment and you have an opportunity to respond instead of an unconscious reaction. Instead of making an unconscious reaction, my unconscious reaction is get the hell out of there. But once I've dropped my awareness into the body, into the felt sense, I'm back in the present moment. I'm back in touch with my true or authentic self, and I can respond to the situation. All of a sudden, I've got ground in my system, in my body, and I can be more present then. You know, for example, when my wife wants to, you know, express some frustration or some overwhelm in her system, if I'm in my body, the energy can, it's almost like the energy then, instead of hitting me and triggering my parts, it's able to go through my system, almost like there's nobody there to get triggered, because the personality, the mind is not in control. I'm in the body and the energy can just flow through my system. And so she is unable to unburden herself energetically without it overwhelming my system. So that's something that I've learned to do through this work, building awareness. And also there are times when, usually it happens once a day, where I'm like, okay, I can feel that I'm out of alignment here. I can feel I'm overwhelmed. Maybe it's through something that's happening in my work, sitting in a client situation that is particularly challenging, or an incident with my daughter, particularly around bedtime. I usually get a mini in after my daughter's gone to bed, because that is the most stressful time. She argues, she fights every moment, to the point where we get her in bed. She's just constant battle for power. And so at those times, for me, I can feel I'm out of alignment. My system, my energy is fractured in some way. And then I will reach out to my community and ask for someone to hold space with me. A grounded system, a system that I can template, and very quickly, in the space of 10 to 15 minutes, I found my energetic ground again. That unstable energy is cleared out of my system, and I'm in a place of balance. Then I can go back into my life situation, and I'm operating from a place of ground and balance, rather than feeling under-resourced or overwhelmed. So that's a powerful tool that I've brought into my life, and that's a big part of the programs that I offer people now, is that connection to community that can hold space.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what comes to the children, and like bedtime or any other transition, coming back home from visiting people, or it's very hard usually for children. And we as adults, once we have knowledge and we are aware of these things, we cultivate that presence within ourselves, so that our children can borrow that. Like your child, when she is in that transition, she does not have that ability, what we're talking about.
Yes.
And even though we can, as adults, we can understand, well, this is our home, this is where we are, or this is what we do every day. What we're doing, this, what time is. You sometimes hear that.
The concept of time.
That. Yeah. You know how we do this, now you go brush your teeth, like this is how we do it. But their nervous system is in a different place. And so cultivating those times of transition that we already know, like you already know, this is going to be a hard one. Every evening is the same thing. So even having that sitting, before all of that happens, and creating very clear routines, step by step, and helping, ourselves, the whole family, to come into the flow of things by just preparing it, is a huge help. And whenever our children, or our loved ones, when we see it come out of their center, we already know, okay, they're out of their center, they're going to need support, or they're going to need some space. Like sometimes I have two granddaughters, and the other one is 7 years old, and a lot of times I just want to be alone. When she gets upset, she just needs the space for herself to regulate, to bring calmness and centeredness into her whole system. And so just understanding, even, like the book that we were mentioning, it's a beautiful tool actually for anybody who wants to check into that, because we start understanding our children's patterns. Is not just for adults. Children pick up these patterns very early on. So once they start realizing that, after that 18 months, that's where the terrible twos, it's a terrible word to, or a concept to say, what we have used for a long time, decades, the terrible twos. But it's nothing, there is something terrible about it, because the child understands that I am not in control. There's nothing to control
Yes.
in this world. So they're going the opposite. They're trying to control everything, because their message is like, I gotta control. I just lost my safety. I just realized this world is very different than what I have understood till now. So it's like the end of the world for these little ones. So after that, they start developing different methods to keep themselves safe, because just the child to experience that my dad or my mom is not responding to my need,
Right.
is so they're left with their own devices, whether you just are at home and turn around and go to the bathroom and just say, just, I'll be right back. You're safe. I know you're crying. I know you're upset. And you have to go and you have to come right back. But that child is experiencing a small trauma. So in that small trauma, they are already, they're in their world, they're having to survive. So they come into these different patterns that they start using. And so when we start understanding early on, oh, my child is using this as a pattern because they're not comfortable with the world right now. So it's a beautiful insight to have. And from there we can have more calmness and peace in our own system and help our relationships. It's all really about
very interesting.
inside,
Yes, I always say this: the best thing we can do really is work on ourselves, our own healing and development, so we can bring a energy of peace and balance to those situations. I mean, my daughter is very different to me. It's that aggressive pattern. It's constant. Whenever she's under stress or overwhelmed, it's this shouting and punching, or just very aggressive, and that's very difficult for my system. It triggers a lot of. I've noticed in my time when I'm with her in that state, and obviously the main thing I'm offering is a safe space. Really, that's all I can do. And I say one thing I won't tolerate is the physical aggression. Punching someone else. I would say that's one thing I'm not going to accept. You cannot harm another human being. You want to punch a cushion or a sofa, I'm always encouraging you, look, get the aggression out, but don't hurt. You can't hurt another human being. That's one place where I will draw the line. And I'll offer her in that state, do you want a hug? Because obviously that's how a child regulates itself, isn't it? Through your own nervous system. But there's plenty of times where in fact, most of the time where she said, no, I don't want a hug. And so a lot of the time I will just hold that space for her to be, not try and change her state, not try and make her wrong for being in a state of anger. And that's one of the state that she has a lot, which is a lot of anger in her system. How these personality patterns develop, like you say, who knows, but that's the pattern that she has. Whenever she is under a lot of stress, she'll go into this aggressive pattern, try and control everything, shout, fight everyone. And I've just learned that the best thing I can do, exactly as you said earlier, in the same way that I do for my own parts, my own anger, my own aggression, my own hatred, is hold space for it. Sitting with myself exactly as I am, without judgment, feeling into all the dark stuff, all the light stuff, and witnessing it in the same way, with acceptance and with compassion. When you're able to do that for yourself, and it does take a support a lot of the time, having someone with us to support us through that is very important as well. But you're naturally able to do it for others. So when my daughter is displaying anger and aggression, I don't go into my triggers, my own subconscious parts, and have the need to kind of fight back out of anger myself. I am able to feel through that aggression and anger in my own system, that she's kind of displaying it and releasing it, and able to provide a supportive balanced template as much as possible until that energy moves through her system naturally. And the other side of that, there's usually tears, sadness, and then she apologizes and we move on. I mean, that is essentially, you could say, what a healthy human being is like. It's able to express and release emotions fully, without them getting trapped in the system, which causes the trauma. Like, just literally display anger as it is, and then when it's naturally passed through the system, on the other side of it is something else. But it is that, I think what we don't want to do with children in particular is to try and stop the process. Like, oh, you're angry, quick, have some chocolate, or stop being angry, or whatever it is, to try and stop them in that natural human process. I think then is where a child, for example, can learn that, oh, that part of myself is unacceptable, or I shouldn't be that way. And that's when, as adults, we can get very boxed off in who we are. The full range of a spectrum of human being is narrowed down to what society deems acceptable. I have to be always this way, otherwise people won't love me or support me. So I'm always conscious of, however you are, is fine, and just holding space for that while she's going through it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And like you were saying, that it's hard for your system, to face that anger. It usually, I believe it's like that with the leaving pattern. It's very hard for my system too. But once we have these tools, like when we talk about quieting down and sitting with ourselves and having support, it's all about just being in that space, creating the space for, particularly for maybe, this incident. I have a child who's very difficult for my system. So let me create a space and ask for support where I can just sit with this. I can go into those feelings of chaos and resistance and horror that I face in myself with this child when she is unregulated, dysregulated, and doesn't know how to get out of the energies that they're in and how that energy is affecting me. Let me take responsibility and just create this space where I can experience this, I can explore it. And when you have support, like you said, Mark, it makes such a difference, because you have support. You have a difficult situation and you don't know how to solve it. So you feel like you don't have no space. You're just like this. And when you have that somebody to come and agree with you, I'm going to sit with you, I'm going to support you, right away you start having space. And so in that space, your system that is so sensitive to detect different energies, and there's no time and there's no space in between, you can take yourself right in that moment of difficulty with your child, even though she's far away from you. So your system gets to experience all of that with that support present, and you get to have that felt sense without that acute situation where you're actually needed as a parent, or you're worried, is my child going to hurt herself, or you're worried about the child's future, like who is she going to upset, or what is going to happen. So you're just in that artificial space, kind of created space, and in that space can happen so much. Like, I'm a parenting coach, but do I tell you what to do? No, I don't. I just guide you to create this space so you can have that relaxed, safe experience in your nervous system of the same problem. And when that happens, your awareness starts showing you things. all of a sudden you might get an idea or a situation and you remember, oh, okay, this is what happened yesterday evening when we were going to bed. And maybe next time we're going to do it this way. There may be just one little idea. Usually it's the simplest little thing. And what happens then is for you to take it in and kind of make a commitment. Okay, this is how we're going to proceed. So you have gotten instruction, step by step instruction, and then you put that in application in your life, and you follow and you observe, what is going different now. So it's a process. It's definitely a process, and it all comes back to us. Everything comes always back to us. And when we understand that we are such mirrors to each other at all times, and we're angels to each other, because wherever we are mirroring those shadow places, we're giving each other information. Hey, there's that place, go visit that. When you have your own time and your own space, go visit that. And once we do, it's a beautiful thing that happens, because in a way the devil becomes a diamond.
Yes.
So in that darkness you find those treasures, and every turn there's another layer and another layer, and we just bring that light into those layers. And so it kind of changes our whole concept of gratitude in our relationships. Because now when we run into that wall or that fraction or fractured places within ourselves, we can have that knowledge in the back. Oh, wow, this is going to be a good one. This is very dark, but this is going to be a great diamond. This is going to be a big diamond.
Yes, and I see this with the difference to mine and my wife's sort of journey with this. She's not called, you could say, to the path of healing and self-development at this stage. I've kind of, touched on it a couple of times, but people are ready when they're ready. And what I see is that she does get triggered quite a lot by my daughter's behavior. Obviously loves her more than anything, but it's the same kind of triggers happening, the same patterns repeating. And I think that will always be the case. We're always going to see the same patterns repeating until we address the internal trauma within ourselves. Like we're kind of constant. This is the same, I obviously work with people now, and relationships, they're seeing the same patterns repeat over and over again in relationship, the same person in different forms that they're attracting, and and the same problems come off the back of it. The external world acts as a mirror of our internal energetic system. You could say the external world is basically like a hologram projecting our energetic system out in front of us so we can see it. If we're witnessing a pattern that keeps repeating, no matter what that is, that could be in our finances, that could be in our work, that could be in our relationships, that's pointing to an unprocessed part, unhealed part of ourselves that is waiting to be healed, literally just pointing it out to us, saying, heal this. So it's up to us. We can take that opportunity to go in and, yes, like you said, thank you for showing me this part of myself that is ready to be healed, and do the work. Or, we can keep witnessing the same pattern over and over again and do nothing about it. If we want, we're free to live this life exactly as we want, really. And it's not up to me or anyone else to say when you should begin the healing journey, for example. But it's a much more productive and enlightening path, I would say, if you look at these patterns as opportunities. Like we always say, that life is happening for us instead of to us. If you can get that, once you get that everything is happening for you to help you evolve, then it's a much happier way to live life, I think, rather than kind of fighting the world and external reality and being stuck in these traumas and patterns. But like I said, you know, I think people are drawn to the path when they're ready. It's not up to us to make them do this kind of work, you know.
Right,
It's
right.
interesting.
Yeah, you know, when you were talking, I just was thinking on the concept that when I came to this work, even though I had done a lot of mindset work and, you know, inner world work, and but when I came to this particular energetic work, the biggest revelation for me, and the hardest one also, was to accept my own responsibility. And I think it goes into extreme. Like there is really no space where we do not get to meet that own responsibility in this work. And let me give an example. So, okay, let's take, well, I mean, I know you know, maybe not all of our listeners know, but about the Ho'oponopono prayer.
Yes. Yeah.
So the story behind it is that this gentleman goes into this hospital, mental hospital, that is full of very, very locked in, locked in mentally people. They cannot get out of there. They're in such a bad shape mentally that they're locked in there 24/7. And they've been, you know, everybody knows they'll be there for the rest of their life. And this doctor goes in, and his approach becomes this. He asks himself, what is in me that has created this madness? What is in me, in my existence, in my system, that has no time, has no space? What is in me that is reflected by this madness? Let me take responsibility for it. Let me go in and find that place. And so he sat with himself, and he sat with a prayer that's so simple. And it's just a reflection of one's own soul asking forgiveness and expressing love.
Yeah.
Asking forgiveness, expressing love. Going into that dark and shedding the light is the same thing. But that's such a beautiful example, in my opinion, of that responsibility.
Yes.
He did not
And by the
know.
way, they all the patients improved, didn't they, in terms of their own?
The place was shut down because they all became well and they were all released.
Yeah.
So it's
Just by
that's
working
kind
themselves.
of the epiphany of our conversation. Because when we have that mirror, all we need to do is look into that mirror and just open our heart, open all of that resistance, allowing it to open. And it doesn't open all by itself. It's resistance. So there is a force that is resisting something. And even if you want it, you know, I don't want this resistance, you get to ask for support. And when you have that support, it's easier to surrender through that resistance.
Yes. Yeah, I'm always saying this to people I've calls with. It's there's a big difference when you're sat on your own and feeling through your experience. For me, people can probably relate listening to this now. It's you sit on your own meditating. A lot of the time, the mind is very active, constantly taking off into the past and the future. Not a great deal of stillness that takes place. Whereas if you've ever done this before, and if you'd like to have a direct experience of this, you can reach out to me. But when you drop in with somebody else, another human being that's present, they don't need to be physically present. You can do this work on, like myself and Kirsty are doing now. There is a sense of safety, connection, and support. And my experience energetically is that there's like an opening in the center of the chest, which is the heart chakra. Well-being starts to flood the system. Then the mind quietens down. This is what I'm always saying to people. You can't make the mind go quiet. It will just get more and more agitated and angry and noisy. The only time the mind goes quiet is when it feels safe and supported. Heart chakra opens, and all of a sudden the mind doesn't have any problem to solve, any danger to look out for. You can finally relax, and that's when this connection to higher self and healing takes place, when mind and body come to rest. That's, I would say, almost impossible to do when we're on our own, because we'll always be in that kind of, we won't feel safe, we won't feel supported. What I would say is that by doing this work of connecting regularly with others in co-resonance, my own meditation practice has gone to another level. Now, when I sit on my own, it's not quite the same level as when I sit with somebody else, but I do get to a place of feeling that safety and support and love, even when I'm sat on my own now at times. Not all the time, but I often get that. But I know that when I sit with someone else just for 10 or 15 minutes, at some point I feel the heart chakra open, my system comes to rest, the mind quietens down, and I can just feel all of this well-being flood my system. And then it's just a case of trusting that higher intelligence to do the work, to bring the healing, to bring the balance into your system. Naturally, it will just bring your system into balance, and your system will heal itself when the mind is not in the way, when it's not meddling, trying to solve problems. It's a beautiful tool, the mind, for day-to-day life, but it's more of a hindrance when it comes to spiritual development and healing. If it's in the way, the only time it gets out of the way and comes to rest is when you've got that safety and connection felt from another human being. So important.
Absolutely. Yeah. The safety is the foundation, for our system to experience healing. So it's the same with our children, and we get to see those shifts and bring the child back into the safety as with ourselves. And the more we spend time with this, and the more we bring our awareness, our energy to these practices, the more we learn of ourselves and also our triggers. Like many times, like yesterday, it just happened. I said, well, I don't know what I got triggered of. I don't know. I have no idea. Sometimes I know, sometimes I don't, because our subconscious is aware of everything at all times. So it could be something very nuanced, that reminds me of a memory of a trauma, that is a memory in my water, that holds that memory. And then I get to, like water is so beautiful because if you sit a water in a glass jar in the sun for a few hours, it heals itself. Have you ever heard that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So anything that is in that water, if you set it in the sun, in the glass, it brings itself to balance. Nobody can say the amount of hours because we don't know what's in the water, but there is a process that water is able to do. So it's the same. We're 70% water. So when we sit,
so
so it's beautiful how the more you're in this world, it just supports itself. The truth is all around it. It just supports itself, and you start finding that place of safety.
Yes. Yes, the more we open up to that greater intelligence, whatever you want to call it, divinity or God or spirit or source, life just, we just surrender to that intelligence, that greater intelligence, and life just becomes incrementally better each day, it seems to me. But yes, it's learning how to surrender is a big important part of that, which is very difficult to do from mind. All about bringing awareness back into the body, back into the felt sense. Yeah.
Right. And breath is a great tool for a simple, great tool. So when our mind may be wondering, like, what am I supposed to do? Just sit down, create a quiet space, and follow your breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And that brings you automatically to the present moment. So it's just as simple as that. It's the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's where I learned meditation initially, following the breath, body scan. And then you can go on to, a bit slightly more advanced, really, where you're following the changing sensations in the body. But for a lot of people initially, there is a kind of disconnect with the body. There isn't much in the way of feelings in the body, particularly if there's been a lot of trauma in the life. So that's a great place to start. We can all follow the breath. We're all breathing all the time. So it's always there as an anchor back to the present moment and our true self. Yeah.
Great one with the children too, with the little ones, just taking a straw or blowing into the bubbles, because
right.
Like when there is you might already know, this is going to be approaching, this dysregulated system with this little one, just taking some bubbles, let's blow some, and you can prevent that, because the breath is the vehicle to our rest and digest response in our nervous system. It's, if you're focused on the breath and you stay focused on the breath, it is impossible for you to be in the longer run in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah, exactly. You're back in the present moment.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something that's I've always, wanted to introduce my daughter to meditation as early as possible. Apparently, about the age of 7 is a good age to start. But just by seeing me meditate every morning, she gets herself into that posture sometimes. Even, and I always say, just say, just try and be quiet. Can you be quiet for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and just try and build it in that early on? For me, meditation is the most powerful practice that I know of, and the earlier I can introduce that into my daughter's life, the better, really. Just all about raising awareness.
Absolutely. Stories are a beautiful tool as well with the children. Stories. Right. Yeah, and just how they're a quiet time, reading time. That's when the quiet.
Right.
That child settles down, and so it's a beautiful tool as well with the children, because it's hard for us to kind of teach them, well, come and meditate with me.
No, not going to do that. It doesn't seem like much fun. Doesn't seem like much fun when you're 5 years old.
Right. We call that scaffolding. So you scaffold the child into the meditation by small practices, blowing into bubbles and reading stories and creating the space, and then modeling. It's a huge thing. It's modeling, which you're doing already.
Templating. That's it. So basically we can sum it all up and say, it's all about working on ourselves, making our own healing, and development our main priority in life always. That's something that's always the main lesson that comes through to me from my own guides. Keep focusing on your own healing and your well-being. Everything stems from that. It's tempting to prioritize other things, relationships and work or whatever it might be, but we've got to make that our own priority. We can't serve others. We can't help others, serve the world, if we're coming from a place of imbalance within ourselves. That has to always be our main priority. Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Kirsty. So much value in there. I'm sure people would agree as well. And yeah, any questions for Kirsty, keep them coming in and we'll check in later. I can see people commenting. Thanks so much for that. People, I just picked a couple little ninjas. I got 5 children, they're adults now. They survived, and so did I. Yeah.
Yes.
5 kids. I can't imagine now. I mean, you say you got 4, Kirsty, but I've got 1, and that's a huge challenge.
I have 4, yes.
4
grown, and 2 grandchildren.
Huge challenge, huge opportunity for growth as well.
Yes. And so can I invite people to go and check out my Facebook page?
Of course. Yeah.
So yes, there's a Present in Parenting Facebook page, and I drop in some nuggets over there weekly, a few times a week. Yeah, go check that out if you're interested in the information.
We'll put the link in the comments. I'll do that later. So anyone who's watching now or later,
absolutely,
have a look at that and check that out. Kirsty, as you can tell, is a very knowledgeable coach, and she's specializing on this area now. So yeah, do check that out. Beautiful. Thank you, Kirsty. Well, I know it's early there. You're about to start your day. Thanks so much for joining, sharing your knowledge as usual. And yeah, hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's always an honor to be here with you. Beautiful. And I thank everybody who's been tuning in and will be tuning in.
Yeah, beautiful. Have a lovely day, Kirsty. I'll close
up
here.
Thank you, you too.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah, I can finish up now if you want, Kirsty. You can step out of the studio.
I see. Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to say.
That's what you were waiting for. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I just press on the leave. That's it. Okay, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Kirsty. Should have made that clear at the start. But yes, I'll wrap up as I usually do. Do check out Kirsty's page. Share some incredible knowledge there on parenting, whether you're a parent or not. She brings through some powerful wisdom, as you can probably tell from today's live. But if you are feeling inspired to sample this work for yourself and start this journey with me, then I'm holding a group meditation with my community that I'm opening up to anyone who'd like to join. Just type meditation in the comments, and I shall send you the Zoom link an hour before we go live. That's on Saturday at 8:30 p.m. UK. What's that? 3:30 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join myself and my community, people around the world doing this work, my own clients, energetic healers, practitioners like Kirsty, and the people I have on every week on these lives, we all get together, we hold space. I guide the whole thing. Incredibly powerful space of healing that we create together. So just type meditation in the comments if you'd like to join us on Saturday and you haven't requested an invite already. But if you can't make that one, then you can book a free call with me as well. Free energetic realignment call at join.thebuddhaspot.com/call. Just book a time and date that suits you, and I can give you a direct experience of this work one-on-one and your opportunity to share your own story, and I'll give any advice I can. And I could also give you a bit more information about my longer healing and coaching programs that I offer. So yeah, whether you'd like to experience this work one-on-one with me or in a group situation, it's all about direct experience with this work. So if you are feeling called, love to share this journey with you in whatever form that takes. But whatever you're doing today, hope you have a beautiful day. Sun is shining here in the UK, so I'll probably head out for a walk in a moment. But whatever you're doing, enjoy it. And I'll be back next week. Bye for now.